To seal the peace pact, I must accept every alien sister's invitation, tonight. So the crystalline spires of Azurea's royal palace caught the light of 3 setting suns, casting prismatic rainbows across Captain Marius Valen's face as he stepped from the transport shuttle. After 5 months in deep space and decades of interplanetary war, everything hinged on this moment. 1 human, 3 alien sisters, and a fragile chance at peace. Captain Valen, a melodic voice called. I am Thaxia, Royal Chamberlain. Welcome to Azurea. Marius studied the tall, blue-skinned figure approaching him. Like all Azurians, Thaxia moved with fluid grace, her eyes large and iridescent, assessing him with equal curiosity. Thank you, Chamberlain, Marius replied, squaring his shoulders. At 34, he was the youngest diplomat Earth had ever sent on such a crucial mission, but his battlefield experience with Azurians made him uniquely qualified. I hope my arrival finds the royal sisters well. Thaxia's expression remained unreadable. They await you in the convergence hall. This way. As they walked through corridors of living crystal, Marius rehearsed his briefing. The Azurian civilization was ruled by 3 sisters who each controlled a domain. Lyria commanded fire, Nyrene presided over ocean, and Celeste governed starlight. Together they controlled resources Earth desperately needed. And after 27 years of bloody conflict, both sides had finally exhausted their appetite for war. Our customs will be foreign to you, Thaxia said, interrupting his thoughts. Most importantly, the bonded ally ritual. My briefing covered the basics, Marius replied, though his pulse quickened. The intelligence reports had been frustratingly vague. Each sister must personally accept me through some form of ceremonial test? Thaxia's lips curved slightly. Each sister must see your essence, your true self, through her domain's element. Only then can they judge if humans are capable of lasting peace. The massive doors of the convergence hall swung open, revealing a vast chamber dominated by 3 ornate thrones. Marius felt suddenly small beneath the vaulted ceiling, alive with swirling lights that mimicked their star system. 3 pairs of eyes turned to him, all iridescent but distinctly different. On the left throne sat Lyria, her azure skin darkened to indigo, her posture rigid with barely contained energy. The middle throne held Nyrene, whose gentler blue complexion shimmered with an almost liquid quality. And on the right sat Celeste, her pale blue skin nearly translucent, her gaze distant yet penetrating. Sisters of Azurea, Marius said, bowing deeply, I bring Earth's sincerest desire for peace and cooperation. Bold words, Lyria replied, her voice crackling with intensity. When your kind has scorched our colonies and mined our moons to depletion. Sister, Nyrene interjected, her tone flowing like water over stone. We too have inflicted wounds. The purpose of the treaty is to heal, not reopen old scars. Celeste, the youngest sister, simply watched Marius with unnerving stillness. The treaty terms are acceptable, Lyria continued, but words on quantum paper mean nothing without trust. You understand the requirement, Captain? Marius nodded. I must be accepted as bonded ally by each of you. Not merely accepted, Nyrene corrected. Known. Truly known. Tonight, Celeste finally spoke, her voice soft as starlight. You will be invited to each of our domains. By dawn, we will know if humans are capable of the connection required for lasting peace. As the formal audience concluded, Marius was escorted to guest quarters to prepare. The room was beautiful but alien, furniture shaped from living crystal, atmosphere adjusted to Earth standard but still carrying the sweet, metallic scent of Azurea. Hours later, as artificial night descended, a small crystalline bird flew into his room, alighting on his desk. It opened its beak and Lyria's voice emerged. Captain Valen, the first ritual begins. Follow the flame path to my sanctum. Come alone and bring nothing but yourself. Tonight we test your courage. The bird dissolved into sparks, leaving a trail of flickering light that led toward the eastern wing of the palace. Marius took a deep breath, straightened his diplomatic uniform and stepped into the unknown, following the path that would either save humanity or condemn it to continued isolation in a hostile universe. The flame path led Marius through increasingly warm corridors until the crystalline architecture gave way to obsidian and basalt. Heat pulsed against his skin as he entered a vast circular chamber dominated by a pit of molten lava at its center. Suspended above it was a platform of dark metal, and standing there, illuminated by the orange glow from below, was Lyria. "You didn't hesitate," she observed, her indigo-blue skin absorbing and reflecting the firelight in hypnotic patterns. "Most would pause before walking into the domain of fire." Marius approached the edge of the platform. "In my experience, hesitation rarely improves difficult situations." Lyria's lips curved into something between a smile and a challenge. Unlike the formal attire she'd worn earlier, she now dressed in flowing garments of crimson and gold that mimicked the movement of flames. "The ritual of courage requires truth forged in heat," she explained, gesturing for him to join her on the platform. "On your world, do you have tales of fire revealing what truly matters?" "We say pressure makes diamonds," Marius replied, stepping onto the platform. He could feel sweat beginning to beat on his forehead, and that gold is tested in fire. "Then you understand the principle." Lyria moved with controlled power, circling him. "War has burned away pretense between our worlds. Now we must see what remains." She raised her hands, and the lava below them surged upward, not touching the platform but creating a swirling column of heat and light that enclosed them completely. "Tell me, Captain Valen, why did you fight in the war against my people?" The directness of her question caught him off guard. "I was a soldier following orders." Her eyes flashed dangerously. "That answer insults us both. The ritual demands truth." The temperature increased sharply and Marius felt his breath tighten. This wasn't just about diplomatic niceties. She wanted the raw, unvarnished reality. "I believed your people were the aggressors," he admitted. "The attack on Europa Station killed my brother. I wanted revenge, justice, and later, when I saw enough death on both sides, I just wanted it to end." Lyria nodded slowly. "Better. And now?" "Why seek peace?" "Because I've seen what continued war will do to both our civilizations. Neither of us can afford the cost." A pragmatic answer. She stepped closer. "But the treaty requires more than pragmatism. It requires connection." The lava surged higher, and suddenly images formed within it. Battles Marius had fought, Azurean ships falling under Earth's weapons, and then unexpectedly, Azurean cities in mourning. Children with Lyria's blue skin weeping beside memorial flames. "Do you recognize your handiwork, Captain?" Her voice held controlled pain. "The siege of Proximastra was your operation." Marius felt his chest tighten. "Yes, I led that campaign. My mate died defending that colony." The revelation hit him like a physical blow. "I didn't know." "Of course not. To you, we were targets, not people." Her eyes reflected the flames, but there was something else there too. Not just anger, but assessment. "Yet here you stand in the heart of my domain, facing me not as an enemy but as a possible ally." Suddenly the platform beneath them split, leaving only a narrow bridge of metal with lava churning on both sides. "The final test of courage," Lyria announced. "Walk to me, but know that if your intentions toward peace are false, the bridge will not hold." Marius understood then. This wasn't about physical courage, but the courage to truly commit to peace, to cross the divide between their peoples with honest intention. He took the first step onto the narrow bridge, feeling it shift slightly beneath him. Each step required perfect balance and absolute commitment. As he moved forward, memories of the war flashed through his mind, the hatred, the fear, the exhaustion, and finally, the recognition that it must end. When he reached Lyria, standing just inches from her, the bridge widened again beneath them. "You didn't come here to secure advantage for Earth," she said, her voice softened with surprise. "You genuinely want this war to end?" "Yes," he answered simply. "For all of us." She reached out, placing her palm against his chest. Her touch was unexpectedly cool against his overheated skin. "Then receive my domain's blessing. Marius Valen of Earth." Something passed between them, energy, understanding, perhaps even the beginning of trust. Her hand lingered, and in that moment of connection, Marius saw her not as an alien queen but as a person who had suffered, fought, and now risked hoping for something better. "The ritual is complete," she said, but she didn't immediately step back. Instead, her fingers traced upward to his face, studying him with new interest. "You are more complex than I expected." "As are you," he replied honestly. The intensity between them shifted, becoming something neither diplomatic nor combative. For a heartbeat, they were simply two beings sharing a moment of recognition across the vast gulf of their differences. When her lips finally met his, it felt like both a seal upon their new understanding and the ignition of something neither had anticipated. "Remember this moment, Captain," Lyria whispered as they finally separated. "When fire judges, it burns away falsehood, but it can also forge new bonds." The chamber's heat subsided as the lava receded. A new path, this one glowing with blue-green light, appeared at the chamber's edge. "Nyreen awaits you in the depths," Lyria said, regaining her formal demeanor, though her eyes still held a new warmth. "The ocean tests differently than fire." As Marius followed the new path, he realized the first ritual had changed him in ways he hadn't expected. He had come seeking political acceptance, but had found something more complex and personal. 2 more sisters awaited, and with each ritual, the line between duty and personal connection would blur further. The luminous path led Marius downward through spiraling corridors that grew increasingly humid. The scent of salt and something like lotus flowers filled the air. Crystal walls gave way to transparent barriers holding back vast quantities of water that surrounded the passageway on all sides. Exotic creatures, some resembling Earth's marine life, others utterly alien, swam in these aquatic galleries, observing him with curious eyes. At the path's end, a circular chamber opened before him. Unlike Lyria's domain of heat and fire, Nyreen's sanctuary was a study in fluid grace. The floor itself was a shallow pool of water that rippled with each step, while the domed ceiling displayed the ocean depths above them, creating the illusion that they stood at the bottom of an alien sea. Nyreen herself rose from the center of the pool, water streaming from her form. Her blue skin had a pearlescent quality that caught the bioluminescent light from floating orbs around the chamber. Her attire seemed to flow between solid and liquid states, clinging to her form before rippling outward like gentle waves. "Captain Valen," her voice flowed like a gentle current, "you have passed through fire and emerged transformed." Lyria rarely grants her approval so quickly. Marius remained at the chamber's edge, unsure of protocol. The ritual was illuminating. A smile played at Nyreen's lips. "I'm certain it was. Please join me in the pool. The water is adjusted to your physiology." He hesitated only briefly before removing his boots and stepping into the shallow water. It came only to his ankles but felt strangely energizing, almost effervescent against his skin. "The ritual of honesty requires transparency," Nyreen explained, moving toward him with fluid grace. "Where Lyria tests courage and commitment, I must see the truth that lies beneath the surface." "Truth can be subjective," Marius observed cautiously. "Not in the depths," she countered. "In ocean's domain, all is revealed. Are you prepared for that level of exposure, Captain?" Before he could answer, the water around them began to rise, not flooding the room but forming a spherical bubble that enclosed them both. Inside this watery sphere, sound changed, becoming both muffled and crystalline. Most surprisingly, Marius found he could breathe normally, though every inch of his skin was in contact with the water. "This is a telepathic medium," Nyreen explained, her voice somehow inside his mind rather than traveling through the water. "Our thoughts will flow between us like currents. Nothing can be hidden." Alarm flashed through Marius. "There are Earth secrets I'm sworn to protect." "I care nothing for your military codes or technological specifications," she interrupted gently. "The ritual seeks the emotional truth of who you are and what you truly desire for our peoples." The water around them began to glow with bioluminescence, and suddenly Marius felt her presence in his mind, not invasive but enveloping, like being surrounded by a conscious tide. Memories rose unbidden. The moment he'd learned of his brother's death at Europa Station, his rage during early battles against the Azurians, the hollow victory after destroying an enemy vessel, the growing disillusionment as the war dragged on, and finally, his desperate hope that this diplomatic mission might end the cycle of violence. Simultaneously, he experienced flashes of Nyreen's memories, the fear when Earth forces first appeared in their system, the agonizing decision to militarize a naturally peaceful society, the weight of watching her people suffer, and her private doubts about continuing the conflict when diplomatic options remained unexplored. "You've questioned your leaders," she observed, surprise coloring her thoughts. "As have you," he responded, equally startled by her revelation. The telepathic exchange deepened, moving beyond surface memories to core beliefs and fears. Marius felt exposed yet strangely unburdened as layers of diplomatic caution dissolved in the telepathic current. Your species values individuality above collective harmony, Nyreen observed. This has made understanding between us difficult. And your people sometimes sacrifice individual needs for collective decisions, he countered. But both approaches have merit and flaws. A new current of appreciation flowed between them. Through the telepathic link, Marius sensed something unexpected. Nyreen's growing personal interest in him as more than an enemy or diplomat. Your mind is beautifully complex, she admitted, her thoughts tinged with a warmth that transcended the political. I did not expect such depth of reflection from a human. And I didn't expect such willingness to question tradition from an Azurean royal, he replied. Honestly, the water around them pulsed with increasing luminescence as their connection intensified. Physical boundaries seemed less relevant as their minds continued to intertwine. Through the link, he felt her curiosity about human emotions, particularly about connection between individuals. Your concept of intimacy intrigues me, her thoughts whispered through his consciousness. The way humans bond. Their physical forms drew closer within the watery sphere, guided by the currents of their shared consciousness. When their hands touched, the sensation resonated through both physical and mental planes. The diplomatic purpose of their meeting receded as something more primal and universal took precedence, the recognition of kindred, spirit across species boundaries. Their embrace within the telepathic waters transcended physical interaction, becoming a communion of minds that found unexpected harmony. In that suspended moment, the war, the treaty, and their duties faded into background noise compared to the profound connection they had discovered. When the watery sphere finally dissolved, lowering them gently back to the shallow pool, they remained momentarily silent, processing the intensity of what they had shared. The ritual is complete, Nyreen finally said, her voice carrying echoes of their mental connection. You have my acceptance as bonded ally. Thank you, Marius replied, finding ordinary speech suddenly inadequate. She moved to the edge of the chamber where a new path illuminated, this one shimmering with starlight. Celeste awaits in the highest tower, Nyreen said. Her test of empathy will be different. She sees beyond what is into what could be. As Marius prepared to follow the starlit path, Nyreen caught his hand once more. When peace comes, Captain Valen, remember that diplomatic relations can take many forms. Her eyes held meaning beyond politics. The currents between our worlds need not be limited to formal channels. With those words lingering in his mind, Marius began the ascent toward his final ritual, aware that each sister was changing him in ways he hadn't anticipated, and that the treaty he sought might bind more than just their civilizations. The starlit path spiraled upward, each step taking Marius further from the ocean depths and closer to the heavens. The air grew thinner, crisper, carrying the faint scent of ozone and something like jasmine. Crystal walls gave way to transparent panels that revealed the night sky of Azurea, 3 moons of varying sizes and a spectacular vista of stars unlike any Earth formation. After climbing what seemed like countless steps, Marius emerged into a domed observatory at the palace's highest point. The entire ceiling was transparent, offering an unobstructed view of the cosmos above. The floor beneath his feet was a reflective material that mirrored the stars, creating the illusion of standing in infinite space. At the chamber's center stood Celeste, the youngest and most enigmatic of the royal sisters. Her pale blue skin was almost translucent, with subtle patterns that seemed to shift like constellations. Unlike her sister's dynamic presence, Celeste possessed a stillness that somehow contained its own intensity. Captain Valen, she greeted him, her voice soft yet penetrating. You have passed through fire and water. Few reach the stars. Your sisters were generous in their judgment, Marius replied, still processing the profound experiences of the previous rituals. Celeste's eyes, lighter than her sister's, almost silver, studied him with unsettling perception. They saw what they needed to see. I must look deeper still. She gestured to a circular platform at the chamber's center, where 2 crescent-shaped seats faced each other beneath a concentrated point of starlight. The ritual of empathy requires more than courage or honesty, she explained as they took their places. It demands experiencing another's reality as your own. Marius shifted uncomfortably. Nyreen's telepathic connection was already quite intimate. A hint of amusement crossed Celeste's features. My sister explores currents of thought, I navigate pathways of possibility. This is different. Without further explanation, she reached forward, placing her palms on either side of his face. Her touch was cool but energizing, like the first breath of mountain air at dawn. Close your eyes, she instructed. And remember, not everything you see has happened yet. As his eyes closed, the sensation of sitting in the observatory vanished. Instead, Marius found himself standing on an Azurean battlefield, but not as himself. He looked down to see blue hands, felt the weight of royal responsibility, experienced the anguish of watching her people die in a conflict that seemed increasingly pointless. He was experiencing Celeste's memories of the war. The scene shifted rapidly. Diplomatic chambers where Azurean leaders debated Earth's intentions, private moments of doubt and grief, the burden of maintaining strength when uncertain. Each fragment revealed the war from her perspective, not just events but the emotional weight behind them. This is how we saw you. Celeste's voice echoed in his consciousness. The viewpoint changed again. Now Marius experienced the human perspective through Celeste's awareness. The fear of alien technology, the desperate scramble for resources, the political pressures that escalated conflict. She was showing him that she had already begun the work of understanding humanity's motives. And this, her voice continued, is what could be. The scene transformed into a vision of the future. Azurean and Earth ships traveling together, technologies merging, cultures exchanging knowledge. He saw diplomatic outposts where both species worked side by side, children of both worlds learning each other's histories. The potential of their cooperation unfolded in countless directions, each more promising than the last. But then, without warning, the vision darkened. Alternative futures appeared, renewed hostilities, technological weapons that could destroy entire worlds, the extinction of both civilizations through stubborn pride and misunderstanding. The paths branch infinitely, Celeste explained as the visions continued to flow. Some lead to harmony, others to annihilation. The difference often hinges on single moments of choice. Suddenly, Marius was thrust into the most personal vision yet, experiencing Celeste's private hopes and fears about the peace process. He felt her caution, her analytical nature that questioned Earth's true intentions, but also her deep desire for connection beyond her isolated role as the Starlight sister. As the vision shifted again, Marius realized Celeste was now experiencing his own dreams and aspirations, his genuine hope for peace, his growing fascination with Azurean culture, his personal loneliness after years of war, and his unexpected response to each sister he had met. When their eyes finally opened, the boundary between them had softened. They remained connected by touch, but now also by the profound understanding that comes from having temporarily inhabited each other's perspective. You desire more than just a diplomatic treaty, Celeste observed, her voice gentler than before. You seek genuine connection. Yes, Marius admitted, seeing no point in diplomacy after such complete exposure, both for our civilizations and personally. My sisters have felt this too. A subtle smile played across her features. It is unexpected. She rose from her seat, drawing him up with her. Above them, the stars seemed to pulse with new significance. There is one final vision I must share with you, she said, guiding him to stand directly beneath the apex of the dome. This time, they remained aware of their physical presence as the vision unfolded around them. They stood together in what appeared to be a council chamber, watching as delegates from both worlds signed elaborate documents. The peace was being formalized, but something was wrong. Faces showed tension rather than celebration. What's happening? Marius asked. Watch, Celeste instructed. In the vision, an explosion rocked the chamber. Chaos erupted as armed figures, both human and Azurean, stormed the room. The peace treaty went up in flames as hardliners from both sides carried out a coordinated attack to sabotage the alliance. This is a possible tomorrow, Celeste explained, as the vision faded. There are those on both sides who prefer war to understanding. They move against us even now. The gravity of her warning sank in. You're saying the treaty is in danger before it's even signed? I'm saying that true peace requires more than ceremonies and signatures, she replied. It needs defenders who understand what's at stake. The air between them changed, charged with both urgency and an undeniable personal current. The shared visions had created an intimacy beyond physical attraction, a recognition of kindred purpose and complementary strengths. When Celeste moved closer, it felt like the natural culmination of everything they had experienced together. Their connection transcended species and politics, becoming something both deeply personal and symbolically significant. "The ritual is complete," she whispered against his skin, "but our journey is just beginning." As they separated, the first light of dawn began to filter through the observatory dome, signaling that the night of rituals was ending. "My sisters await us in the Convergence Hall," Celeste said, her expression now carrying both warmth and renewed purpose. "The decision must be formalized, and then we must address the threat." As they descended from the starlit sanctuary, Marius realized that the peace he had come seeking had transformed into something far more complex and personal than a simple diplomatic mission. He had become invested not just in Earth's future, but in Azurea's as well, and in the lives of 3 remarkable sisters who had changed him forever. The Convergence Hall glowed with morning light, transforming the previous night's shadows into brilliant clarity. As Marius entered alongside Celeste, he found Lyria and Nyreen already waiting. Their expressions revealed nothing to the assembled diplomats and guards, but Marius, now attuned to their subtleties, detected both concern and anticipation in their posture. "The rituals are complete," Lyria announced formally, her voice carrying throughout the hall. "Each domain has tested the Earth envoy according to ancient tradition." The gathered officials, both human and Azurean, shifted expectantly. Earth's future hung in the balance of the sisters' judgment. Nyreen stepped forward, her fluid movements drawing all eyes. "The ocean has witnessed honesty in Captain Valen's purpose. His currents run true." Celeste moved to join her sisters at the central dais. "The stars have confirmed his capacity for empathy. He sees beyond his world to ours." All attention turned to Lyria, whose approval was traditionally the most difficult to secure. She held the moment, eyes locked with Marius's across the chamber. "Fire has tested his courage," she finally declared, "and found it sufficient. Captain Marius Valen is accepted as bonded ally to Azurea." A collective breath released throughout the hall. The Earth delegation exchanged relieved glances as Azurean officials bowed in acknowledgement of the historic moment. Ambassador Chen, Earth's senior diplomat, stepped forward with the formal treaty, a document that had required years of negotiation to reach this point. "Then we may proceed with the signing," she said, unable to completely mask her relief. "Captain Valen has fulfilled his mission admirably." But as the document was placed on the ceremonial table, Marius caught the silent exchange of glances between the 3 sisters. Celeste's vision of betrayal flashed in his mind. "A moment, Ambassador," he said, his voice cutting through the ceremonial atmosphere. "There's something we must address before proceeding." Confusion rippled through the gathering. "This wasn't part of the protocol, Captain." Ambassador Chen's tone carried a warning. Marius looked to Celeste, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. "The rituals revealed more than just our capacity for peace. They showed an immediate threat to these proceedings." The hall erupted in murmurs. Lyria raised her hand, immediately silencing the crowd with her authority. "Speak plainly, bonded ally," she commanded. "There are factions on both sides planning to disrupt the treaty," Marius explained. "The vision came through Celeste's domain, but I believe we can verify it through conventional means." Ambassador Chen's expression hardened. "These are serious accusations, Captain." "Based on visions?" "Based on intelligence that can be confirmed," Marius countered firmly. "Celeste, with your permission." The youngest sister stepped forward, her pale blue hands gesturing toward the crystal walls. They immediately darkened, then displayed intercepted communications and surveillance, footage showing both human and Azurean extremists planning coordinated strikes against the peace delegation. "We've been aware of these movements," Celeste explained calmly, "but uncertain of the exact timing or extent of human involvement." The ritual of empathy completed the picture. The evidence was irrefutable. Several members of both delegations shifted uncomfortably as their covert communications appeared on the crystal displays. "Secure the hall," Lyria ordered sharply, and royal guards moved with precision to surround several officials from both delegations. What followed was a tense hour of confrontations and revelations. 3 Earth officials and 5 Azurean representatives were detained after communications revealed their involvement in the plot. Security throughout the palace was heightened as additional conspirators were identified. Through it all, Marius worked alongside the three sisters, bridging the gap between Earth and Azurian security protocols. Their connection from the night's rituals created an unprecedented level of cooperation and trust. When security was finally assured, the reduced delegation reconvened around the treaty table. The mood had shifted from ceremonial to solemn determination. Today we have seen both the worst and best possibilities of our alliance, Nyreen observed, looking around the chamber. Betrayal was planned yet prevented through cooperation.